Okay, that brings us to 11 a.m. Central. Once again, thank you guys all for attending. We understand how busy work and life can be and appreciate you taking the time to attend our webinar today, The Power of Label Management Software and How It Benefits Your Business. I am Nick Recht. I'll be the main presenter today. I am the America's Sales Manager here at TechLinks. I've been with TechLinks for a very long time. In that long time, I've worn a lot of different hats, ranging from um, product management all the way to sales. I love my work. I get to say that I really get to do what I love every single day, and that's help people. Particularly at work, I get to help people use technology to solve business problems, and that is something that I am certainly passionate about, and I hope it comes through in not only the webinar today, but any future interactions we might have. Um, with that being said, I enjoy building better connections in all aspects of my life. And at the end of the webinar today, I'll be sharing my email address with you. So if you'd like to connect on a one-on-one basis to talk about labeling, please let me know, and we'll be happy to do so. Uh, Towards the end of the presentation, my partner in crime, Bob Lenski, TechLink's own engineering team lead, will be sharing with you a demonstration of our very own enterprise label management solution, TechLink Central, and some of the key components that help paint the picture for what enterprise label management is today. He's been with TechLinks 12 years, and he loves technology and keeping up with the ever-changing landscape. So before we get into the agenda, I do want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. First and foremost, we have planned 2 polling questions in the webinar today. They'll be pretty self-explanatory. I'll announce that they're coming. I'll read the question, and then it will pop up on your screen, and you'll be able to participate with your answer. They will allow you to select multiple options. So please give that back. I'll kind of run it like an auction. So I'll keep it open and let you know how much time you have left. We will share the results, not with your name though, just the results of the breakdown, and have a discussion around it and really use that information to drive some of the future discussion of the webinar today. We also encourage questions. In the GoToWebinar pane, there is a chat window. Please feel free to pop your question right in that question chat window, and we'll have live moderators responding as we go. And I will use those in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar today to address as many as I can. You don't need to wait till the end. You can put it in right away. And if we don't have time to address it live in front of the audience, or maybe it doesn't make sense, we'll be certain to circle back with you after the webinar to keep that conversation alive. And then 2 more things. Check out the handout section for links in to useful resources that you can take with you from this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, there will be a survey. That survey serves 2 purposes. 1, to let us know how we did, if it met your expectations, if it was good content. 2, if you'd like to request any additional material, which we'll mention towards the end, or if you'd just like to be followed up with to have a conversation about enterprise label management. So without further ado, let's get into the agenda. So you all know we're here to talk about label management. So kind of the flow of what we're going to take you through today is starting with just a high-level definition of what label management is. A majority of the people I interact with are doing labeling in one fashion or another. And so we want to start by painting the picture for what label management is, for the foundation of everything else we talk about. Then we'll jump into some of the business benefits of label management. We'll talk about how easy it is to install and then ultimately use, because I know a lot of my existing partners that I work with have come from a world where labeling wasn't so easy. And when you deploy enterprise label management, it often becomes a whole heck of a lot easier. How will label management software integrate with my business systems is the next one. We'll talk about the 2 main ways we see. We won't go too deep into it, but we certainly will address it and then are available for future discussion afterwards. How does label management help me control who can design, print, and approve the labels? Really, this is a big how as to the what is and the why. And then we're going to end with how it's licensed, because that tends to be the next follow-up question after we share this education with our partners. So with that being said, I want to launch our first polling question of the day. So the first polling question is, what are your biggest challenges in labeling today? So the question is officially launched. You should be able to interact with your response right on the screen. I'll keep it open for about a minute, and then we'll share everybody's responses. So don't be shy. Go ahead and participate with your answer right on the screen. And I can see here how many, the percentage of people who have voted, and oh, it's jumping up. You guys got the message. So like I said, I'll keep it open till over 80% of you have voted, or a minute. So yep, once again, the question is, what are your biggest challenges in labeling today? Don't be shy. Feel free to pick more than one. More than likely, and based on the preliminary results I can see here, you are certainly not alone. All right, if you're out there and haven't voted, which isn't too many of you, I'll give you 10 more seconds. 5, 3, 2, last chance, so get it in there. 1. Good. All right, so we've had about 70% of our audience vote, and let's go ahead and share those results. All right, so the most popular label challenge today is many different label files. So obviously you're not alone because it's the most popular answer, but I will make sure to address how a well-designed and well-deployed label management solution can address this. And I'll likely have the deeper discussion about it when we dive into the how can it integrate with business systems section. I'm just taking a quick note so I don't forget. All right, and then the second most popular is label errors or lack of quality control. Great. So I suppose it's not great that that's a challenge, right? But it is great that you're here today because we'll be able to show you and kind of talk through it, how a proper enterprise label management solution can address this. I have two main things in mind, so I'll definitely talk about them when we get to the proper moment. Now, the third place is manual data entry on the labels. That's one that has plagued people labeling for ages. The old problem with fat fingering a lot number or something wrong. So we'll talk about that too, but we won't spend as much time as the other one. And then 23% of you said disparate labeling systems. One of the key points of a very successful enterprise label management solution is really managing multiple processes, or what was multiple systems, into one. And I hope you can see that at the end. Now I know there's others and they're in the chat. So we can, we'll wait to address those at the end of the webinar so that we don't ruin our flow right now. But they will certainly still be there and we'll definitely bring them up. All right, so back to our content for the day. So we wanted to start really the information share portion of this with just what we mean when we say what is label management. So when we talk about what label management is, we're really talking about a solution that provides for you an effective way to keep labels and labeling processes organized. Often that involves some level of centralization, whether it's centralization of the labels themselves or centralization of the solution as a whole. And when you deploy a label management solution, not only do you have your labels and your labeling related processes organized and managed under one solution and centralized, it really helps lay the foundation to keep that portion of your business efficient, productive, and controlled. Some quotes that we often hear from our end users when we kind of identify that an enterprise label management solution might be something that'll benefit their business is I'm doing thermal transfer labeling in a variety of ways from a variety of different applications. Or the person who managed our labeling quit, or the person who managed the Excel sheet with all the data quit, or I need help replacing this custom built app because the original developer is gone. That can often be a key sign that you might benefit from some level of enterprise label management. And then the last one we hear is one that I've seen too many times, and it's really, I don't know what happened. We shipped out our lettuce, but it was labeled as tomatoes, or vice versa. And often mislabeled product can result in a recall. In the worst case scenarios, it can result in bodily harm if it's a pharmaceutical or a medical device. So that's certainly something you want to avoid. And if that's a challenge you have that has either happened or something you're compensating by a lot of manual processes, an enterprise label management solution can certainly help. Now, just to wrap up our definition, if this didn't give you everything you wanted, if you take a look in the chat window, there is a link to a great blog we made. It's a blog called The 7 Key Components of a Successful Label Management System. It kind of expands on this definition a little bit further for you. So now that we've laid the foundation for what enterprise label what a label management solution is, let's take a minute talking about some of the key benefits of label management. Now, I've been in the business long enough to know that we want our benefits to tie directly in to ROI. So as I describe these, I'm going to try to hit that home for you. First one being increased efficiencies. Two of the main ways that a label management solution increases your efficiency is by integrating data onto your labels, potentially automating out of an existing system. And either of those increase efficiency a lot. Imagine a world where you had a wide variety of different label files, like a lot of our audience mentioned today, and you were able to pivot to a world where the content of that label, potentially even some of the location of some of those items, changed based on the data being driven to that label template. That's something a successful label management system can do for you. And then two, if we're talking about really maximizing the ROI of your existing business systems, we often help our clients with our label management solutions integrate. And integration can look like what I had just mentioned with gathering data from your single source of the truth. Other times it looks like a automation element where, say, you spent a considerable amount of money on an ERP or warehouse management system or some sort of custom developed app that helps you run your business. We can often generically latch onto the back of that to make the labels that you need to print simply be a result of an action within the business system, not a decision a print user makes. Both of those have major benefits on ROI. So the second major benefit we typically see with deployments of successful label management solutions is a reduction in labeling errors. Really, anytime you eliminate fingerprints or eliminate decision-making from actual people and make labeling a result of an action within a business system, you see a reduction in errors. And really the range of cost of a labeling error can be next to nothing, something that just goes out and it wasn't great, but it happened, to a full product recall. So a reduction in those can certainly have a major impact on ROI. Now the last one here is one that typically isn't articulated based on like a bottom line adjustment, but it's something that is certainly recognized by the people involved in IT. So imagine going from a world where you had a label design application deployed on every station in which you needed to print from, to a world where every user within and outside of your four walls was printing out of a browser-based interface that required the installation of nothing or a very small plugin that happened directly from the website. That eliminates or severely reduces the burden on the IT. the IT folks, because no longer do they need to go station to station to perform an update. They can simply do it centralized and have it be deployed everywhere. So with that being said, I want to pivot now to talk about how easy it is to deploy a label management solution. I know in a lot of my discussions, people say, Nick, this is great and these ideas are great, but what does it take? You know, we've been doing our current labeling process for 15 years. It can't be that seamless to replace. So I just want to talk a little bit about how easy it is to deploy and then what the world looks like after it is deployed. So the typical duration to really start experiencing business benefits from a label management solution is around 1 month. We've certainly had environments that are up and running in less than a couple days and able to migrate their current processes over to the new label management processes quickly. And we've certainly had some that take a couple months, particularly ones where there's like a high volume of disparate labels that we need to centralize. But I'd say the average time is about 1 month. And when we deploy our label management solutions, or when you deploy a label management solution, you're really going to want to hunt for one that doesn't require complex proprietary system integrations. I know I find beauty in simplicity, and when we can take an advanced process and integrate to your existing data via a generic method like an OLE or ODBC connection, or a RESTful API or OData connection for cloud-hosted data sources, or vice versa. Use those same methods to automate printing out of that system. We really experience a quick integration, one that can happen often in less than a couple minutes with the proper people involved who know how to get us into the data. And then two, because it's generic, you can upgrade that system independently of your label management solution, or upgrade your label management solution completely independently of that ERP or warehouse management system. Now, on the side of usage, not on deployment, I want to spend a minute talking about kind of what the world looks like or how easy it is for a user to use it. More often than not, small businesses have started by printing directly out of the same interface in which they designed the label in. That has two big problems that we see. One, that you're required to install software directly on that station. And two, there is some level of training or some level of familiarity a user needs with a mouse or a computer to be able to select the proper template, bring back the proper data to it, potentially select the proper printer, and then print and pray they don't make a mistake. I've often referenced it as the file open, print and pray process. So when we deploy a label management solution, I'd say 9 out of 10 times, you're eliminating the need to install anything locally, and you're either automating or presenting with a printing interface that is so simplistic. A user simply needs to scan in a work order or a part number and click print, or they release the work order pack list or whatever it is that's telling them what they need to make that day, and labeling becomes a result of that action. And now you might be saying at this point, Nick, I would love to live in a world where I could replace all my labeling with one process, but it's just not realistic. And very often, people need to deploy one solution that can manage to many different workflows. And the best label management solutions will allow you to do that. And they'll allow you to manage an automated one, as well as publishing a printing interface to maybe your internal users and your out-of-network users, while also providing maybe a more streamlined ad hoc method through the web as well. That's just a little teaser for what we're going to show in the live demonstration a little bit later, because we'll highlight that pretty good. Last thing I want to mention before I move on to polling question number 2 is we have a really great resource available for you. It is the Microvention case study. This one really hits close to home, so keep an eye out. It'll be in the GoToMeeting interface here. This one really hits home because our user, Frank Carranza, who participated in the case study, not only not only deployed it for microvention, but they came from a different company that replaced their label design solution with um, TechLink Central, our enterprise label management solution, to experience a 50% increase in efficiency in the labeling process. That efficiency happened by reducing the manual processes. And one of the quotes that Frank mentioned was, hey, the TechLinks team guided us through the implementation process was remarkable. They successfully guided us through the internal issues as they arose. In their case, they were replacing a few different processes and a few different applications and some very complex data-driven labels with a new solution. And we were able to, based on our technology and our experience, overcome every hiccup that popped up. So I want to jump into polling question number 2 for the day. So the polling question number 2 is, what holds your business back from moving to a label management system? It's launched. Please participate with your answer. It'll be available for about a minute or until we get a majority of the audience to answer. But I'm assuming you attended today because you had some level of pain in your business that you thought might be helped with a label management system. And now that we've equipped you with a foundation of understanding of what it is, some of the benefits you can experience, and what a deployment might look like, we really just want to understand what might be holding you back. I think this will be really interesting when we share the results as well, to see if other people might be in the same boat. All right, you know who you are who hasn't answered yet. I'll leave it open for about 15 more seconds, and you don't need to pick just once. Like I said, there's beauty in simplicity, but often our businesses aren't as simple as we'd like, but often the labeling solution to fix that can be that simple. All right, go ahead. We have 10 more seconds. 5, 4, you know who you are. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it and share our results. Okay, so we can see that the most popular reason for holding a business back from moving to a label management solution is lack of internal resources. 2 is budget constraints, and then a close tie at 3 is, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and we can't risk production downtime. So I'll start by addressing the most popular here. Lack of internal resources. So right now, your internal resources, or really your bandwidth, is likely constrained, just like everybody else in the world, right? It's not easy to hire people at this point, and it's certainly not the easiest to hire people who are really great at doing their jobs. I'd say that this one is most often overcome by leaning on the provider. I can't speak for other label management system solution providers out there, but I know here at TechLinks, they actually sit right outside my office here. We have a team of engineers who are always ready and willing to help. Not only do we provide the assistance in getting your system set up, but we can also provide assistance in the migration process if there's any templates or whatnot that need to be optimized or migrated to the new solution. And then from a support standpoint, we offer different support packages ranging from standard, you call us and we'll help you, to we can actually help you by VPNing in or having, you know, kind of an integrated system where we can act as a level of support. So I'd say, prior to letting that really be a roadblock, let's have a conversation, because we might be able to come over it. Budget constraints, you know, when we're talking about the money, it is always how am I going to get my ROI and how quick can I get it? I'd say that in the past couple of years, the main thing that has helped our end users that we partner with overcome the budget restraints are really our subscription-based licensing. It takes the capital expenditure of an enterprise label management solution off the table and rolls it into an operating cost. Not only is that great for the accountant-minded people on the line, but it's really great for the bottom line, as it saves you a lot of money in the short term and often in the long term. Now, when we talk about status quo or risking production downtime, status quo works. I am certainly guilty of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But often when you really see that ROI or your business grows large enough to justify that ROI, status quo doesn't work for you anymore. And then as far as the risk in production downtime goes, I'm not going to address that now or actually I will. More often than not, when we deploy our solution, we deploy it hand in hand with your existing solutions. And you run them side by side until you're ready to retire that old solution. Sometimes that happens after a week. Sometimes it takes a month. But really, I'd say in 99% of our deployments, we do 0 production downtime deployments. So it's something that's realistic. And then just like with the other question, I'll address everything from the chat window in our questions section at the end.
All right, let's move forward and discuss a couple more things before we get into a demonstration here of actually how a label management solution can work for you. So what we have here is, how will my label management software integrate with my business systems? We decided to incorporate this in the presentation today because it was feedback from a lot of the registrants that this is one thing that they'd really like to understand more. And in my experience, there are 2 main ways that a label management software integrates with your business system. One way is a pull, where the labeling solution actually reaches to that business system that might be the single source of the truth for label data to acquire that data live at the time of print. And option 2 is that system, whether it's an ERP system or a warehouse management system or some sort of custom application, will actually push that data out to the label management solution. Both are acceptable, and in the case that you're partnering with TechLinks for your label management, we do it completely off the shelf in a supportable and generic method so that you don't need to rely on high cost resources or proprietary development that will kind of hold you down in your current application. So our labeling software can connect to your single source of the truth via any of the generic methods supported today, whether it's an OLE connection, an ODBC connection, or a RESTful or OData connection into your data source. And then on the push side, we can collect that data via an XML file, the monitoring of a database, or the waiting for that print request to come via a RESTful API. When Bob gets into the demonstration, he will show you a little bit about that as well. Now, I know this might not have been the deep dive you wanted, but rest assured that if you let us know on the closing survey that you'd like to really discuss how we could integrate deeper with your current business system, we will be very happy to discuss with you on a more personal basis after the call here. So how does label management help me control who can design, approve, and print labels? This really comes down to the core of the ROI you get from a label management solution. It's controlling who can do what, right? Whether it's deviating the difference between print users and designers versus approvers and administrators, or implementing a level of control on making sure that only approved label templates can get printed, or really leveraging one solution to control multiple printing processes out of one standardized, controlled solution. And that's really what a label management solution will do for you. So the question is, how does it do it? First is you standardize on a platform. Second is you deviate those permissions. There's no need for a user whose job is to print labels to have access to design them, unless your business calls for it, in which case you can still have the control of being able to see how they did it, when they did it, and what they did. Two is controlling the workflows, whether it's a workflow in the design process, if you live in a heavily regulated business, like you work with hazardous chemicals or pharmaceuticals or medical devices, you'll be very familiar with the mandates and really the necessity for a control in that approval process. Or if you're really just functioning more in a general manufacturing industry where a labeling error isn't necessarily life or death, it's just profit, a label management solution will help you facilitate and control those multiple printing processes. Maybe some of your users do need to print ad hoc out of the designer, where a lot of them can print in an automated fashion directly out of their business system. And you are experiencing some pain points with controlling labeling for your outsourced contract manufacturers, and you'd like to deploy a web interface for them to print. A good label management solution will let you do that all out of one platform. So without further ado, I want to pass the microphone and the screen over to Bob Lenski, our engineering team lead and our resident TechLink Central expert, to discuss two elements. First one being the element of control, and then two, our different printing processes. So please take it away, Bob, and enlighten us.
All right, great. So the first component of the solution that we're going to take a look at here is our CodeSoft design application. This is really the utility that we'll use primarily to create labels and modify existing labels. This platform also has the utility built into it that will allow you to kind of add that layer of user account management as well as control. You know, really at the end of the day, most of the time with an enterprise label management solution, you're going to have different groups of users kind of interacting with the platform at the same time doing various things just related to their primary job function. You know, those groups kind of fall into generally a designer group, a managerial group, or a QA group, and then you'll have your print users, and then probably some administrative level users that are just responsible for making sure the entire application functions as needed. With our label archive application, which is an add-on component here to the CodeSoft software, you get to control all of those aspects by way of a user account management. So whether you integrate this solution with Active Directory or you simply give usernames and passwords out to your user base, based on who they are and what their role is within a business, they can only do then certain things with the label designs or the overall system and print process. So what I wanted to do in this demonstration is show you how the control systems kind of work in the software as it relates to a print user. And then later in the demonstration, we'll go through all the various different ways that a print user can ultimately print these label designs created in our CodeSoft platform and stored within our label archive solution. So simply by logging into this screen with whatever user account is most appropriate, I'm going to use the print user account. The application itself will give us a connect successfully message, and then we will be able to access the templates that are stored within the system. From File, Label, Archive, and Check Out, it will give us the ability to open any label that's stored within the environment. Now, on the left-hand side of the screen, you get the ability to store your labels really in any subdirectory or folder structure that you would like, but at the end of the day, any label stored within this program is going to be managed not only from the initial creation, but for every single version of that label that's ever been created or modified against that design. So on screen here, I have this document called toys.lab, and you'll notice that within Label Archive, every single version of that label has been tracked since its original creation back in September of 2021. In the user column, you'll be able to see what user ultimately submitted or put that label into the system. And then for every single version thereafter, that user account is also going to be associated. Generally, what happens here is that a design user responsible for creating the label or modifying the label places that first version into the system, and then a member of quality or somebody in the managerial team, really just anybody responsible for approving their work, would be responsible then for approving that template. Once it's ultimately approved, then that label goes into what we would consider a production ready state. And that's when the print users are able to then print those labels that have been created by the appropriate teams and approved by the appropriate teams. And you can really kind of see all of that information at a glance on this screen when you take a look at this state column. The state column is going to kind of break out for us what labels are currently in a final state with this green check mark, any label that is currently in a draft state with these red dots, and then maybe any label that is currently seeking approval. That's going to be represented with this red question mark. And the understanding here is a design user would have created it. Somebody in QA is still responsible for approving it, but ultimately, once it gets approved, it'll end up in this green check mark state, and that's when the print users can use it via the kind of various different ways that we can go about printing now these centrally stored and controlled documents.
Great information, Bob. So this is a great example of how the information and your templates and really your design process can be controlled with a label management solution. What Bob is going to share for us now is how you can control your printing processes. He'll start with this, showing you how you can have ad hoc printing done directly out of your designer. He'll pivot to how we can automate printing in a variety of different methods where a user wouldn't interact with anything from the labeling solution, and labeling would simply become a result of an action in that business system. And then he's going to highlight a couple of browser-based printing interfaces that can be deployed within your four walls or outside of your four walls to involve your suppliers or contract manufacturers, to show how one solution can control not only all the design aspect, but also a wide variety of printing processes as well.
Yeah, so with the first topic, it's really just going to be opening a label from this system. And that's really is just as easy as selecting any of the labels here on screen, then clicking the OK button. And then that label is going to open up in the CodeSoft platform so that a print user can print that label. You'll notice here that all of the options to modify that template are grayed out. And really the only option for the print user then is going to be printing that design. So a simple click at the top of the screen would allow that user to print this label to any device that is appropriate, enter in any key piece of information that's maybe necessary at point of print. But in this process, the design application is still the print platform. The account management within the solution allows you to make sure that print users are not modifying anything that they're not supposed to be. But this is still then just that one-stop shop for creating labels, saving labels, and then ultimately printing labels with that element of control on top of it. The next utility that we're going to take a look at for a more automated workflow would be our Sentinel application. The Sentinel application here is on the right-hand side in yellow, and the idea with Sentinel is that it serves as sort of a middleware between any business system that you may have, so that you can facilitate printing out of that system, whether it be IQMS, SAP, any ERP system, a custom application. The basic idea here with our Sentinel application is that by sending a simple string of information to this platform by way of some action in that system, then we can print that label automatically, sort of giving the illusion that that system is actually generating the label and putting ink on paper, but in reality, it's sort of that middleware talk between our system and your existing system to fill that labeling gap. So with our Sentinel software, it can be as easy as taking a text file, pasting it into a folder within the environment, and then Sentinel will perform the job of generating a printout. In this demonstration, it's just a PDF file that represents the label that we were just looking at, but the actual printer at the end of the day in most environments, is going to be that endpoint where the label would print. There are various ways for our Sentinel application to kind of receive this simple string of information where you're telling us what label to print, what printer to print it to, the information that should be on the label. And Nick mentioned a fair amount of them earlier in the webinar, such as database monitoring, REST API calls, etc. So we'd be very interested in kind of seeing maybe what ways would be most appropriate for your business system to talk with ours. The next option that we're going to take a look at is our web interface for printing labels. You know, oftentimes you want to create a label in a design system, but then you don't want to install applications everywhere so that the printing of the label can ultimately happen. And that's where our TechLink Central web interface comes into play, because it is a easy to use, more workflow driven interface so that a print process can be structured and the right label can come back to the print user really at demand. So oftentimes this interface is used maybe in conjunction with a work order number or a part number, so that a print user can type in or scan in any value. And then the idea is that the right label design returns to that user with the right information on it. So it kind of flips the idea of searching for the label design on its head a little bit and makes it more of a business workflow. You know, we start using those values that your users see and recognize every single day to facilitate the right designs and right data coming back to them. And it can really eliminate a lot of the choices that maybe users have to make today when they're just looking at a big folder of a bunch of labels. This solution is available in any browser so that we can create and control the labels back in CodeSoft, but then publish them via this web interface, and via a simple URL, we can go about facilitating the printing of those labels anywhere. The last interface that I wanted to show is the sort of open print and pray method that we kind of talked about. You know, oftentimes with these types of solutions, we need to have just a very simple workflow. And our TechLink Click Print feature allows that to happen. So within our Click Print software, effectively what we're doing here is we just publish an entire directory of labels. And then what you see on screen is every single label design that is in that directory, kind of giving you the ability to search within all of those labels by the name of the document. But then it's just an easy to use interface so that once a print user hits a print button, they're able to see a small picture of the label, maybe modify any information that's necessary at the point of print, update that preview, and then ultimately hit the print button. So it's sort of the same approach in terms of web-based printing, but it is very much the presentation of all of the labels and allowing the user to choose, whereas in our TechLink Central web interface, it was more of a printing interface structured around a business logic or a business workflow. I find most often that these two types of printing play together in most environments, so that the really nice thing within TechLink Central is that we're able to facilitate all of those options really from one solution.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth, Bob. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say I always find it so incredible how so much of the business processes and flows that might be managed by different systems today, or different local installations entirely, can be replaced by one. So with that being said, give us a moment to make me the presenter again. So typically after people learn about what we're talking about today, the next question that comes to their head is really, how is the software licensed and can it be scaled?
So as you saw in Bob's demonstration there, one solution can not only process full control of everything from the design and history side, but also full control of, in this example, 4 different printing processes. Some companies leverage all 4, some companies leverage a combination of the few. We've even had other companies where we've had to work with other unique scenarios as well to just help them move data from system to system rather than necessarily print it. So With that being said, I hope that paints the picture for how scalable a label management solution can be, whether it's because you're growing by acquisition or just getting more people involved in the printing process. When it comes to the actual licensing components for how you will control the solution, it's really based on three main things. One is how many people are you going to have in the design pool, the design and approval pool. Two is how many people are you going to have logged in to printing interfaces that are not your ERP or warehouse management system. And then finally, how many printers are you going to print to in an automated fashion from your business system? It is these licensing components that really make the system scalable unlimitedly upwards. Now, with that being said, we couldn't end the webinar without giving you a little bit of a plug for our upcoming TechLink Central 7 launch. We're expecting the launch here within a month, and it introduces cool new features to the platform that Bob demoed from you. New features ranging from autosave for cloud-hosted solutions to enhanced print capability, leveraging PDF and multi-page documents for taking your labeling and control beyond label printing and into the world of document printing. The ability to leverage on-the-fly adjustments to margins at your labels, so giving an element of control to the print user, but just to shift things holistically left, right, up and down. A really great one for our medical device and pharmaceutical companies, and the ability to have comments in your reprint so that if you do have an audit of your labels and see that a specific device or pharmaceutical was reprinted, you can very quickly drill into why. And then server auto scaling for our companies that put it in a Microsoft Azure cloud, and then search improvements to make it easier to return labels to the print user at the time of print.
A few more things before we jump into the Q&A. This is the contact information of not only our main customer support line, but also my direct email. So if you'd like to give me direct feedback or have a question directly from me, please do not hesitate to jot that down and let me have it. Follow us on our social media outlets. If you want a copy of these additional case studies that we didn't share as in the chat or the handouts, let us know in the survey. Just drop your email in there and we'll send you a copy of them. But we have a lot of proven success stories, and I know personally I'm certainly excited to talk about them. So with that being said, give me a minute to pop open my question window and we'll dive into some of our questions. I'm not fully understanding if Label Matrix can do all our labeling and setting up security with multiple departments in mind. So I can definitely speak to that. Label Matrix is not your best solution if you're looking for setting up security and multiple departments. Really, you're leaning more towards an enterprise level designer or even an enterprise level solution like Sentinel Label Archive or TechLink Central. But let's certainly have a discussion about it. We're not saying that we don't want you to use Label Matrix, but you might be able to migrate those Label Matrix templates into a solution that will handle that a little bit better. All right, so now we're into the actual questions. Here we go. How do future enhancements affect older versions and links to current integrations? That's a great question. So typically, when we have our enhancements to our product, they are designed based on customer feedback. They're in the next version, and they don't have any impact on what you're currently doing today. If anything, they'll simply make it slightly better and a little more easy to use. All right, we see a couple questions about here. Do you have a SaaS application for label management and printing? So we identify our product as cloud enabled. It can be a cloud that we host. It can be a cloud that you host. But regardless of it, we have found that labeling is so proprietary to a business in the processes in which they manage that we cannot adequately serve your business needs by providing it as a full SaaS-based offering. But it is something that you can experience all the benefits of your standard SaaS offerings, like the elimination of any infrastructure and whatnot, the monthly or annual fee versus a capital expenditure, while still providing you the cloud solution. So it's not a simple yes or a simple no. It's more of a let's have a conversation because we can experience all the benefits and then some, and maybe help you understand why a SaaS-based offering might not be the best for your labeling. Because no matter what, the end result of a labeling solution is going to be ink on paper, and those printers are going to be within your four walls. Could the automated label deployment technology be implemented on specimen labels with multiple files? I have a pretty exhaustive experience here at TechLinks helping labs. I've helped our products integrate with a variety of different LIMS or lab information management systems. So I'm assuming that we'd be able to help with that. So please just let us know and we'll circle back with you after the information today. All right, so I've ran into not being able to pull table data from Excel when macros are used in the spreadsheet. Is there a workaround with a newer software? They currently run LabelView 2019. Well, let's address that in a few different ways. Excel isn't a true database. It identifies as a spreadsheet program. And for that reason, when you introduce multiple sources accessing it simultaneously, there's certain technical constraints that are beyond our control. But we can often overcome that by migrating to a more enterprise level data platform like Access, SQL, Oracle databases, so on and so forth. But what I will say is that if you are technical enough to use an Excel sheet with macros involved, you might want to consider not connecting the labels to that data, but using an Excel macro to act as the printing interface and automatically printing interface by those macros, pushing data to our CodeSoft and Sentinel platform. If that's something that piques your interest, just please let us know because we'd be happy to have a discussion, and we could probably provide a pretty simple demo for you that would show you exactly how to do it. If I move to TechLink Central, can I open and edit my CodeSoft 2015 labels? You absolutely can. CodeSoft is the label designer that powers TechLink Central. So those templates will seamlessly migrate to the newest version here. All right, I see one more question popped up. Hold on, is there a GS1 wizard you're using to create the GS1 barcode? Yes, I have created enough GS1 barcodes by hand to know that I will never not use our wizard again. It adds all the application identifiers and all the filters and function one characters and stipulations on the data for you. It's available in all of our label designers and really an instrumental part of any good automated identification and data collection solution. All right, how do companies measure ROI after implementing a label management solution? This is one that I've seen happen a variety of different ways. The one that I often find the most exciting or the most easy to digest is time in the printing process. If you imagine a printing process where people are printing directly out of the interface in which they design it, they may be spending a considerable amount of time picking the proper label, keying in the variable data elements, selecting the printer, printing, and then that's often compounded with a quality assurance method on the back end to make sure that nothing gets mislabeled. So the larger the organization, the more printers, more people involved, the more that's multiplied. I actually worked with a company about 6 years ago that printed 6 million different label requests globally per month. And when they had a manual process, each time they printed, it took them about a minute. Or it was 6 million total labels. It was somewhere around 500 to 100,000 requests per month. But each one of those took about a minute. And they replaced it with a process where it was fully automated, result of an action within a business system. And in that case, the ROI was justified in a flash simply by the reduction of time it took to get the labels to the printer. Would the software be able to drive a laser maker or a DPM, a direct part marker? So the answer is yes. It depends on your laser maker or your direct part marker that's in play. You know, more often than not, those systems followed one of two approaches. One, they said, we make the software and you have to use our software to drive it. Otherwise, they say, no, we can accept any form of graphic and we have a generic Windows-based driver. So if it's a laser etcher or a direct part marker that can accept printing from different systems, our system will seamlessly integrate with it. All right, so that takes us to the end. Now, again, I want to thank you. Please don't forget to participate in the survey upon exiting. Let us know how we did. We know we messed up with the screen not sharing. We sincerely apologize, but I hope the content was still valuable for you. So with that, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to be talking to very many of you very soon.